The rain had just stopped when I pulled into the driveway. I remember that detail because I remember thinking how lucky I was. Lucky the storm passed before I got home. Lucky my wife Danielle was waiting for me on the porch, her arms already open. That same soft smile she'd had since the day we got married 3 years ago. I got out of the car, tired from a 12-hour shift at the warehouse, and walked straight into her arms. She smelled like vanilla and rain. For a second, everything felt normal. Everything felt safe. Then I pulled back to kiss her forehead, and that's when I saw it. A small, dark smudge on the collar of her white blouse, right near her shoulder. My eyes locked onto it before my brain even understood what I was looking at. It wasn't dirt. It wasn't coffee. It looked like makeup, a shade of foundation that wasn't hers. Danielle wore a lighter shade. I knew that because I'd watched her put it on every morning for 3 years. "You okay?" she asked, tilting her head, that same gentle voice. I forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired." But inside, something cold had already started spreading through my chest. I followed her inside, my mind racing but my face trying to stay calm. She went into the kitchen like nothing happened, humming some song from the radio, pulling out plates for dinner like it was any other Tuesday. I sat down at the table and watched her, really watched her, the way she moved, the way she avoided looking directly at me for more than a few seconds. "Long day?" I asked. "You have no idea," she said, laughing softly. "Traffic was insane after my shift." Daniela worked as a hospital administrator downtown, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Nothing unusual about that. Except today wasn't a work day. It was Sunday. I felt my stomach drop. I didn't say anything right away. I just watched her set the plates down, watched her hands, steady and sure, like she'd rehearsed this moment 100 times. "Danielle," I said carefully, "I thought you had the weekend off." She paused, just for a second, but I saw it, that flicker of hesitation before she answered. "They called me in, short-staffed. I told you this morning, don't you remember?" She hadn't told me anything, and that smudge on her collar was still there, staring back at me like a silent accusation. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling fan, spinning slow circles, listening to Danielle's breathing beside me, steady and calm like she didn't have a single worry in the world. I kept replaying the morning in my head. She hadn't said anything about work. I would have remembered. I always remembered things like that, because I always asked what time she'd be home so I could time dinner right. Around 2 a.m., her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She didn't wake up, but I did. I stared at the screen, glowing in the dark. A name I didn't recognize. Marcus. No message preview, just a notification that vanished as quick as it came. My hands felt cold. I told myself it could be anything, a coworker, a group chat, nothing. But some part of me, the part that noticed things I wished I hadn't, knew better. The next morning, I watched her get ready for work again. Same blouse folded and put away in the laundry basket, like she wanted it forgotten. I waited until she left, then I walked straight to that basket and pulled it out. I held it up to the light. The smudge was still there, and underneath it, faint but unmistakable, was the shape of a handprint. A handprint. Small enough to be a woman's, but positioned wrong for that, right near her shoulder, fingers spread like someone had gripped her from behind. I sat down on the edge of the bed, blouse still in my hands, and I felt something in my chest cave in. 3 years of marriage. 3 years of Sunday pancakes and late-night talks and promises whispered in the dark. And now I was sitting here trying to read secrets off a piece of fabric. I thought about confronting her right then, calling her, screaming into the phone, demanding answers. But something told me to wait, to watch, to learn the truth before I let her know I suspected anything. That afternoon, I drove to the hospital where she claimed to work overtime. I parked across the street and waited,
feeling like a stranger in my own life. At 5:15, I saw her walk out. She wasn't alone. A tall man in a gray jacket walked beside her, laughing at something she said, his hand brushing against her lower back like it belonged there. Familiar, comfortable. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I didn't know his name yet, but I knew, without a doubt, that whoever he wasn't just a coworker. I followed them without thinking. My hands were shaking on the wheel, but something in me needed to know how far this went. They walked 2 blocks to a small coffee shop on the corner, the kind with string lights in the window and chalkboard menus. Danielle laughed at something he said, and the sound of it hit me harder than anything else that day. That laugh used to be mine. I used to be the one who made her laugh like that. They sat at a table near the window. I parked further down the street and watched through the glass, feeling like a ghost haunting my own marriage. He reached across the table and took her hand. She didn't pull away. I sat there for almost 20 minutes, watching 2 people who looked like they'd done this 100 times before. Comfortable silences, easy smiles, the kind of familiarity that doesn't happen overnight. When they finally stood to leave, he leaned in and kissed her cheek, slow, deliberate, like he had every right to. I drove home before she could see me, my mind a storm of questions. Who was he? How long had this been going on? And how many other overtime shifts had really been this? I got home first. I put the blouse back exactly where I found it, and I waited for her to walk through that door and lie to my face again. She came home 20 minutes later, keys jingling, cheeks flushed like she'd rushed the whole way. She kissed me on the cheek, same as always, and started talking about some difficult patient's family, some story I was sure she'd made up on the spot. I nodded along. I asked normal questions. I even smiled once, though it felt like tearing something inside my own chest. That night at dinner, I decided to test her. "How's Marcus doing?" I asked, keeping my voice casual, stabbing at a piece of chicken like the question meant nothing. Her fork stopped halfway to her mouth, just for a second, but I saw it. "Marcus?" she repeated, too quickly. "I don't know a Marcus." "Must have heard the name wrong," I said, and let it go. But I watched her face, watched the color drain slightly, watched her eyes dart to her phone sitting face down on the counter. Later that night, while she showered, I picked up that phone. My hands trembled as I tried her passcode, our anniversary. It worked on the second try. I opened her messages. Marcus's name was right there at the top, the thread stretching back months. My throat tightened as I opened it, bracing myself for whatever truth was waiting inside. The first message I saw made my blood running cold. "Can't wait to see you again. Same place, same time." It was dated 3 days ago. My thumb scrolled up, further into the conversation, and every message felt like another brick dropped onto my chest. Photos of them together at that same coffee shop. A voice memo I didn't dare play with her in the next room. Messages about keeping it quiet a little longer. Then I found something that stopped me cold. A message from 3 weeks ago. Marcus had written, "I still feel guilty about David. He's a good guy." David, my name. She'd responded, "I know, but I can't keep pretending everything's fine, not after everything that happened." Everything that happened? What did that mean? Had something happened between them that I didn't know about? Or was she talking about our marriage, about me?
I heard the shower shut off down the hall. My heart pounded so loud I thought she'd hear it through the walls. I put the phone back exactly where I found it, screen down, same angle. When she walked out in her robe, hair damp, she smiled at me like nothing in the world was wrong. "You're quiet tonight," she said, sitting beside me on the bed. "Just tired," I said, the same lie I'd been telling myself for days. But inside, I wasn't tired. I was breaking, and I still didn't have the full truth, not yet. The next few days, I became someone I didn't recognize. Quiet, watching, calculating. I started noticing things I'd ignored before, the way she'd angle her phone away from me at dinner, the new perfume in her bag, one I never bought her, the way she'd laugh at texts and quickly explain it was just Sarah from work before I even asked. I needed to know who Marcus really was, so on Thursday I called in sick and followed her again. This time she didn't go to the coffee shop. She drove 20 minutes across town to a quiet residential street lined with maple trees and parked in a small blue house. Marcus opened the door before she even knocked. He hugged her the way I used to hug her, long, tight, like he'd missed her all day. I sat in my car, engine off, watching my wife disappear into another man's home like she belonged there. An hour passed, then 2. When she finally came out, she was fixing her hair, straightening her blouse, the same kind of blouse, the same kind of smudge waiting to happen all over again. I followed her home in silence, my hands numb on the wheel, my mind made up about one thing. I needed the truth, all of it, even if it destroyed me. That night, I did something I never thought I'd do. I waited until Danielle fell asleep, then I quietly got dressed and drove back to that blue house. I don't know what I expected. Answers, maybe, or just the chance to look this man in the eye. I knocked, and Marcus opened the door in sweatpants, surprised to see a stranger standing there at 11 at night. "Can I help you?" he asked. "I'm David, Danielle's husband." His face went pale, all the color drained like water from a cracked glass. "David, listen, it's not what—" "Don't," I said, my voice shaking but steady enough to stop him cold. "Just tell me the truth. How long has this been going on?" He rubbed his face with both hands, looking suddenly exhausted, older than I'd seen him from the car. 8 months, he said quietly. "But David, I swear it's not just some affair. She told me things about your marriage, about things you don't even know happened." My chest tightened. "What things?" He hesitated, glancing behind him like he was scared she'd somehow hear. "You should ask her about the accident 2 years ago, the one you don't remember." I felt the ground shift beneath me. "What accident?"
Marcus wouldn't say more. He just stood there, jaw tight, shaking his head like he'd already said too much. I drove home in silence, that sentence looping in my mind. The accident you don't remember. I didn't remember any accident. 2 years ago, we were happy, or at least I thought we were. That was the year we bought this house, the year everything felt settled. I walked inside and found Danielle sitting on the couch in the dark, wide awake, waiting for me like she already knew where I'd been. "You went to see him," she said, not a question. "Tell me about the accident," I said instead. Her face crumbled. For the first time since this all started, she looked afraid instead of guilty. "David, sit down," she whispered. "Tell me." She took a shaky breath. 2 years ago, you were driving home from your brother's place, late at night. You fell asleep at the wheel. You hit a guardrail and you hit your head badly. You don't remember because of the concussion. The doctors said some memory loss around trauma is normal. Why didn't you ever tell me? My voice cracked.
Tears spilled down her cheeks. Because after that night, you weren't the same person anymore, and I didn't know how to tell you that I lost you long before Marcus ever came along. I sat down slowly, my legs unable to hold the weight of what she'd just said. What do you mean I wasn't the same? Danielle wiped her face, her hands trembling. You became distant, David, cold. You'd forget things, snap at me over nothing, disappear for hours without explanation. I took you to doctors. They said it might be personality changes from the head trauma. I stayed because I loved you. I kept hoping you'd come back to me. So you found comfort in him instead of fighting for us? My voice hollow. I was lonely for 2 years. I missed my husband while he was still standing right in front of me. Marcus was patient with me when I fell apart. I'm not proud of it, but I never stopped loving you, even when I hated what happened to us. I wanted to scream. I wanted to walk out and never come back. But sitting there, staring at this woman I'd built a life with, I felt something else creep in beneath the anger. A strange, aching grief for 2 years I couldn't remember. Time that had shaped our marriage without my knowledge or consent. I need time, I finally said. I need to think. She nodded, tears falling silently, and for the first time in days, neither of us said another word. I moved into my brother's guest room for 3 weeks. Time to breathe, time to sit with the truth instead of running from it. I got my medical records from that year. I talked to my old doctor, who confirmed everything Danielle said. Personality shifts, emotional numbness, a man who'd technically survived a crash but lost pieces of himself no scan could measure. I talked to Marcus one more time, too. Not out of anger this time, but to understand. He wasn't some villain plotting to steal my wife. He was a lonely man who fell for a woman drowning quietly in a marriage that looked fine from the outside. That didn't make it right, but it made it human. Danielle and I started therapy together, slow, painful sessions where I learned who I'd become after that accident, and she learned how to finally say out loud everything she'd swallowed for 2 years instead of finding comfort elsewhere. It's been 8 months since that day I hugged her on the porch and felt my whole world crack open over one small stain on her blouse. We're still healing. Some days feel like starting over completely, but we chose to stay, chose to rebuild something honest instead of something comfortable and false. That smudge on her collar didn't end my marriage. It's what finally forced the truth of it into the light.